Maybe friends.com is a dating and social website. So it's a place where people can meet other people to make friends or form relationships. Well, when you join the site, you put your profile up, which is like your ad about yourself, which can be quite long because it's a website, so there's lots of space. And then you can contact other members through an internal mailing system. You can also mail people that are online at that time. So when you log on, you can see who else is on and you can talk to them like having a conversation with them, obviously through typing.
Anotherfriend.com is Ireland's #1 dating website. We cater for people who are single and who are looking to meet new friends, whether it be for travelling, an email pal, friendship or love and romance. The key feature of the site is the ability to connect with other people. So for example, you put up your profile on the website and you have the ability to search other profiles to meet a prospective match. The features we'd use would be email, SMS or voice contact with other members.
I definitely saw a need in the market for something. You know, people do get tired of the pub and club scene, and as well with more and more people getting separated, there's a lot more single people that are a little bit older, in their 30s and in their 40s, when they find it very difficult to meet people. They tend to have their own circle of friends, but it's very hard to get outside of that to meet someone new. So this provides a great service for that.
We would have, I suppose, about 10% of our users would have photographs. There's a certain reticence in the Irish market to display your photograph. We think that's because people are afraid that somebody they know is going to see them. Where if you're on an American dating site, there would typically be 90% photographs on any dating website. Now, any profile that has a photograph attached would typically get 7 times more mail than a profile with no photograph. So it certainly is a big attractor to somebody to be able to view somebody when they're searching profiles.
I suppose initially I would have gone online to try and meet people and to maybe find a boyfriend and possibly a relationship. And over time and experience of dating and whatnot, I've changed my mind that I think I'll just chat for a little bit and take a break from dating and just make some friends. I would have heard the advertisement on the radio and toyed around with it and said I'll just go for it, and did up my profile. It's been changed 100 times since probably, but you know, I think writing your profile for the first time is very nerve-wracking because you're talking about you, and then you kind of see what other people have wrote and you say, oh, hang on, I tidy up.
3 years ago, I was separated and at home, looking at 4 walls. And, you know, at my age, people are out in partnerships or married or things like that. So I heard about it on the radio. I thought, what could I do? So I had to go. And I joined Maybe Friends, and then I joined another friend. So that's where I started.
I think the dating scene has changed quite remarkably over the last decade. Part of the reason for that are the number of choices individuals have to decide how you might meet a potential partner. So you have speed dating, you've got online dating, you've got news groups you can visit people or meet people on, as well as your traditional ways of meeting people through the pubs and club scene.
On anotherfriend.com, about 90% of our users are based in Ireland and 10% are overseas. These being countries such as the US, Australia, Canada and the UK, which would have a natural affiliation to people in Ireland. Within the Irish market then, 50% of our members are based in Dublin. This would reflect the population, and we see that further rolls out around the country, with most members based in cities and then a smaller population in the rural areas.
There's about 20% under 30. And about 40% of our members would be between 30 and 40, and then another 20% between 40 and 50. And then we have people right up to in their mid to late 70s, so that makes up the rest of the market. We don't ask about race or creed. We purposely don't ask about that because we feel that if it's part of the person and they feel it's a very important part of who they are, they'll put it into their profile. But we don't feel that we should be discriminative in that way. In terms of sexual orientation, 90% of the members would be heterosexual.
We'll be aware of a number, I suppose, of minority groups which reflect the change in culture in Ireland. For example, there's a number of other nationalities who will be active on the site. Also, the gay community will be active on the site. It's not something that we actively target or monitor, but we certainly are aware of it and would encourage all users to anotherfriend.com.
Midweek is the most popular, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Night time, after 9:30 at night is very popular, but also lunchtimes are very popular. So obviously there's a lot of in-office usage, and lunchtime in the chat room tends to be a fairly busy place.
I do believe that online daters are very selective when it comes to choosing a romantic partner, because as you say, online they've got a list of many attributes. They've got weight, height, they've got people's values, people's hobbies, whether they've got children, whether they've got pets. They've got all this plethora of information available to them. And given that, what I believe is that they usually enter online dating with a shopping list and trying to tick off as many of the boxes that they can and trying to find an ideal partner. Because of that can appease people a lot more. Maybe they are more likely to find their ideal partner. But in another way it can cause problems, because you can see so many choices out there, and I believe that it raises people's expectations as to what is truly available to them in terms of who would actually like them back. So sometimes they hope for a little bit more than perhaps they can actually get. What's different between online dating and face-to-face dating is when you meet someone face-to-face for the first time, you only have a little bit of information about them and perhaps a bit of interest that you would like to gradually get to know them a little bit more and find out more about the depth and the breadth about that individual. When it comes to online dating, you have a smorgasbord of information right there in front of you. And so when it comes to, for instance, some of the things that you may not like about an individual, you have that too, and so you might be more likely to discard them because you already know that information. When you get to know someone face to face, that gradually comes out and you may have already got to like them, and so something like having a child, or for instance you find that out later down the track, that may not seem such a negative characteristic.
Well, my habit would be when I log on, if I have any messages, I would go see who the messages were from. Then I like to see who's looked at my profile to see if anybody new has, and then you would check what they were like, and if you were interested you'd send a mail back. And then I might look at the people who are online, and I tend to go for if someone has a picture. I find I don't like not knowing what someone looks like.
Age, I prefer somebody around my own age, because I'm not into dating younger guys. I don't feel as if I have anything in common with them, even though I have discovered over the last 2 years or so that an awful lot of younger guys hit on older women. It just doesn't interest me at all in the slightest.
When you first join a site, you're sending loads of emails, and you'll actually find some people actually put on their profile, I'm not into this sending loads of emails, let's just get chatting. I suppose you learn a gut feeling after a while. Yes, this person is engaging and I wouldn't mind talking to them. One of my secrets is I would have a separate SIM card, so I would have a different number so that I'm not giving out my personal number, and it's personal safety at the end of the day. So I've no problem giving out that number, and if they're going to be a pest, they can just pester that because it won't be on my phone, and just check it every couple of days.
In this country now, there's a lot of people from all different cultures, and if he was a white guy, nice, fairly okay, I would have no problem dating him. I did go out with a South African for a while. He was a white South African, and we had a great time, and it broadened my horizons to many different cultures,
Typical first date expectations for online daters is that what they're trying to do is really two things. They're trying to establish whether or not there is physical chemistry between the two individuals, and what they say is that really can only be determined face to face. And I think part of that is because of reciprocity, that you need to gauge whether that other person is attracted to you as well. Because of that, individuals want to meet the partner straight away, so they don't spend a lot of time online getting to know one another, but they want to establish whether or not there's physical chemistry immediately. The second thing they want to do is actually screen out that person, because they know that people can be misleading online, that perhaps they've developed a profile that's not quite matches who they are. So they want to screen out to see, is this person genuine and do they really live up to that profile? And if so, then it can progress to further dates. But if there's no physical chemistry, and if that person doesn't quite match up to their profile, then usually there won't be any further dates after that, but instead the individual will get back online and search for another more perfect profile.
We do find that a lot of people tend to do everything. So they're not confined to just going online, or indeed to just using one site. Some people will be members of 3 or 4 different sites, and they go speed dating, and they go to pubs and clubs. So some people do an awful lot.
And we see speed dating as being complementary to internet dating. So if you're a single person, you really should be looking at all avenues in terms of meeting a prospective mate. For example, if you've seen the recent Carl Spain documentary, he looked at a number of different avenues, including internet dating, speed dating. We've run speed dating events ourselves, and actually have recently introduced a speed dating quiz onto our website, so taking speed dating online.
I have children, and I find that's part of where I have a block with dating, that some guys have an issue when a woman has children and they're not into having kids around. I'm pretty mobile. I'm not saying I'm not overweight. I like to go walking, I like to go dancing, I like dancing a lot. I'm pretty active. I go cycling, I teach gymnastics. So I kind of would like someone around my interest, like not major fitness fanatic, but someone that's fit. Sometimes I'd be in the mood for just going for a date and having a laugh. I'm enjoying someone's company, and I kind of find guys around the 28, 29 mark are a bit more flamboyant and more fun than guys in their 30s. But then again, when you're looking for a relationship, maybe somebody in their 30s when you're in your 30s is probably a better idea.
Somebody that's funny and you can have a bit of crack with, and just their overall appearance and their way of going on. Just somebody that's funny and, easy to be with and feel comfortable with. That would be basically it. If he didn't make an effort, to go out and meet somebody, if he didn't scrub up well or looked untidy or fingernails dirty and, just basically if he didn't make an effort, that would really put me off. I'd actually tell him to, good night, goodbye. I'm not sitting with you or having a drink with you. I wouldn't like that at all.
I've dated a guy from Latvia, and I had a date with a guy from Czech Republic, and I've met some guys from Poland, and what I find is they've a lot more manners and they treat a woman well. I think it's because they've been in the army and they have a lot of respect, and they also are taught to dance. It's part of their culture and whatnot. And when I go salsa dancing, I've danced with some Mexicans and some Spanish and some Brazilians, and I suppose what I like about that is it's a dance, there's nothing on the end of it, which is nice, because when guys come up and talk to you, or if you're chatting online, sometimes there is something on the end of it, and a girl isn't always out for that.
One of the interesting turn-offs that I hadn't thought about when I interview people is that they said the cliche profile was a real turn-off. And what I mean by the cliche profile, it's one that says things like, I like sipping red wine over a log fire or something, or going for strolls on the beach, and things like that. Things that seem like a nice romantic occasion, but it sounds a little bit cheesy at the same time. And so a lot of individuals would actually pass those profiles and not engage with those individuals, because they just thought, well, that's not what a real person's like. This is just someone trying to appease me or sound romantic in a way. I had one individual that I interviewed saying that they were so sick of the people writing about strolling on the beach that they said if there were that many people strolling on the beach, how come they're not all meeting each other? So that's a big turn-off. I guess other turn-offs are things, well, men and women are looking for different things anyway, as they do offline. Physical attractiveness is an important aspect that both men and women look for. When it comes to online dating, they do want a photograph. So, one, because they want to know who it is that they're dealing with. Two, to see, you know, their physical attractiveness is something that they would like. And so a profile that doesn't have a photograph or a clear photograph is something people will probably bypass as well.
It is an unusual business in that we measure some of our success by people's absence from the site. So for example, it could be a member meet somebody, disappear maybe for 3 months or 6 months, and then maybe come back if the relationship wasn't successful. Or maybe they cancel a membership because they have met somebody else and it's moved on to something significant, you know, as a relationship or an engagement. So one of our measures of success is actually people cancelled from the website. We've had over 20 weddings that we know of. Not everybody would come forward, particularly in Ireland, and say, I met my husband or wife on an internet dating site, though that's starting to change. We've had 2 weddings in the US, one of which was a typical American whirlwind romance that the couple got married 10 days after they met. But in Ireland, typically people meet and engagements and weddings come a little bit later. But the attitude's changing. We had one couple, I think in the early days, who she was from Dublin and he was from Kilkenny, and they told people they met at a hurling match rather than saying they met on an internet dating site.
Well, we've actually had over 50 engagements since we started, so it's an enormous success rate. And obviously, as time goes on, we're getting more and more because, you know, they'd be going out for a couple of years before they decide to get engaged. And now that we're up and running for 5 years, we're seeing all these people coming back and letting me know what has happened, which is just fantastic. I mean, that's what the site is about.
My children actually, a couple of years ago, said to me that I should have a boyfriend, and I looked at them and I said, why? Like, am I not playing football? Like, do you want a man to be taking you out playing football? And Jack said, no, Mum, to look after you. And I said, well, you know, I look after you, you look after me. That's okay. I said, maybe somebody will come along one day. And the other fella was under the duvet, and next thing he says, no, Mum, to have sex. And I goes, oh my God, what is he on about? And I said, I was trying to be as calm as possible, and he said, Luke, I said, where did you get that from? Sex in the City on the telly, ha ha. I was like, oh God. So I have my children's blessing to go out and date.
I suppose, you know, you just keep chatting to all of them at one stage, and if one happens to ask you out and it's, you know, the evening goes well and maybe you might see them again or you might want to see them again, then I suppose you could tell these other people, well, look, I've met somebody and, you know, we're going out at the moment and everything's going fine, so I'm temporarily out of the scene at the moment. Both of those sites have a chat room. And I have to say, like, that for me, the chat room is great fun at night time. You know, if you're home and you're bored and the kids are gone to bed or the kids are gone out, whatever. I found the chat rooms on these sites excellent because, you know, you can interact with people younger than you, older than you, male, female, and it can keep you up till 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes, you know.
I think you need a break sometimes from the site. You need to let your life go on, and, you know, it is addictive going on the site. Even when you're not a member, you can check who's been looking at your profile. And, you know, I've taken a break and I've gone back to 50 messages sitting there waiting for me to answer. That it is addictive, big time. I found last year there was a group in the chat room that we all knew each other, even though we were in different parts of the country, and it was good crack.
I found that an awful lot of men, mostly younger than me, and I'm talking in their 20s, would come on to me big time, and they would say, oh, can we chat, can we talk, will you meet me, and things like that, you know. And I used to think to myself, what's the infatuation? I'm 48 years of age. What does a 26-year-old guy want to do with me? You know, what interest has he got with me? And they're only interested in one thing, and it's so sad because there are so many nice, genuine people out there that have a reason to be on a site, to go out and meet people and have a bit of fun. And other people have a different idea of what it's about, you know. And, you know, any 26-year-old guy that comes on to me with that, I lash them out of it.
It can be an easy way to find other individuals for sex. Some people are more devious in using online dating sites for sex, in the sense that they'll pretend that they're looking for a long-term relationship and then just want to find sex from that. But in the main, people are actually using online dating to develop long-term relationships. Because they are investing time and energy into it, and you can go and find sex in the local pub. I'm sure it's not too difficult, you know. I guess less difficult for women than it is for men. So although some people will be likely to use online dating to find sexual partners, it's more the norm that people are using them for finding long-term relationships. I can give you an example of this girl that told me that she saw this person's profile, thought he was quite a handsome looking guy, very excited about meeting him, and they met up for the date, and he turned out to be fat and bald and quite short as well, all the opposite things to what his photograph looked like. So she says to him, look, your photograph was quite different to yourself, so obviously it's a different person. Why was this the case? And he says, well, it's my brother, and I thought I'd quite look like, you know, quite similar to my brother. And she's like, no, you don't. So I guess that's an example. Most of the ones that are dates from hell is because they don't match up to their profile. Now, how you deal with that? Well, probably the best thing that people are doing is actually meeting up with people very quickly to determine if they actually match up with their profile, because you can be strategic online. You can choose whatever information you give, and you can't see whether that's true or not. I guess the other thing though is that with online dating they are moving to using video and voice as well. So you can use things like instant messenger within the site, so you can actually find out more information about them and check to see if they actually look the way that they're claiming to look from their photographs or whatever. So that might be another way to do a quick check before you meet face to face.
People don't normally come back to us and tell us they've had a bad date because they've made the choice of who they date. It's the same in the offline world. So for example, if you meet somebody on Saturday night in Lily Bordello's and decide to date them and you've had a bad date, you're not going to go back and complain to Lily's that you've chosen badly. And we'd say the same behaviour applies in the online world as in the offline world.
We have a number of things in place security-wise. So if somebody is upsetting you, obviously you can report it to ourselves and we will remove the member if necessary. But there's also a facility to block people. So if you go out with someone and you really don't like them and you don't want to hear from them again, you can just block them so that they can't contact you. So they may send you a mail, but you will never receive it.
Everybody needs to get out. They need a social life. We can all stay home and go to work every day and mind the kids, and single people as well, they're looking at four walls, looking at television. I think it's a great way of socialising.
It is the future. It is, people are meeting across the globe, and broadband, the internet is everywhere.
I personally would recommend it to anybody. I've had great fun on it. I've met great people on it. I've met my best friend on it. And certainly it's worked for me.
Cyberspace, the internet, it's become part of our normal everyday lives. So given all those factors, I don't think that it's something that's going to pass away, but rather become something that's more popular in the way that we develop relationships.
I think it's definitely here to stay. I think the fact that we're 5 years in the business itself is probably going about 10 years, and it is just rising and rising all the time. So it definitely is here to stay, and I think it will just keep on growing.
If you're single, online dating is the future. Certainly the track record speaks for itself in terms of we're 5 years in business. The number of engagements and weddings is growing, as is the number of friendships and social clubs that come out of our website. As they say, there's someone for everyone, and we say you'll find them at anotherfriend.com.